The Galactic Unity Conference was supposed to be a simple diplomatic event, a moment of peace among dozens of alien species. For Captain Ethan Cross, it was his first real mission as a representative of Earth. He was proud, nervous, and trying his best not to mess up in front of hundreds of alien leaders. The hall was enormous, built from shining crystal and glowing energy panels that shifted colors depending on who spoke. Creatures of every shape and size filled the room, some with feathers, others with scales or metallic skin. It was both beautiful and terrifying. Ethan adjusted the small universal translator in his ear, hoping it would keep up with the thousands of alien dialects. His job was simple: to greet the rulers, represent humanity, and not cause an intergalactic problem. At least that was the plan. The Valoran Empire had arrived last. Their delegation was led by Queen Sarathia Valora IX, a tall, graceful being with pale silver skin and glowing blue eyes that could silence a room. Her presence made the air feel heavier, like gravity itself respected her authority. She was known as the Conqueror of Nebulas, the Unifier of Worlds, and the Queen of 10 Suns. Ethan had read about her. She was powerful, intelligent, and feared by her enemies. But to his human eyes, she looked more like a figure from a dream than a warlord. Her voice was calm, melodic, and slightly intimidating. When it was Earth's turn to speak, Ethan walked to the glowing podium. His translator hummed softly in his ear. He took a deep breath and began. "On behalf of Earth and the Human Alliance, we are honored to share peace and friendship with all species," he said, trying to sound confident. "May our cooperation bring prosperity to all." The translator beeped once, then flickered. Across the room, several aliens looked at him with confusion. The Queen's expression changed slightly, her glowing eyes narrowing. Ethan didn't notice. He was too focused on remembering his speech. He lifted his glass of luminous blue liquid, part of the ceremonial drink all diplomats were given. "To peace," he said. "And to unity." The translator blinked red. The words it transmitted were completely different. In the Valoran royal language, the phrase became, "I offer my life, my loyalty, and my heart to you, my eternal bond." Gasps filled the hall. The Valoran guards dropped to one knee instantly. The Queen tilted her head in surprise. A soft hum spread across the chamber as Valoran priests began whispering ancient chants. Ethan froze, realizing something was wrong. What's happening?" he whispered to the human ambassador beside him. The ambassador's eyes went wide. "Ethan, I think you just proposed marriage." To the Queen, Ethan nearly dropped his glass. "What? No." "I just said—" The Queen stood, her eyes glowing brighter. "Human," she said in a voice that echoed through the hall. "Do you understand the vow you have spoken?" Ethan gulped. Peace? Unity?" The hall went silent for a moment that felt like eternity. Then the Queen smiled. A slow, amused smile that made every Valoran in the room gasp again. "Very well," she said. "I accept," the priest cheered. The aliens whispered. The humans panicked. Ethan looked around, completely lost. "Wait, what do you mean you accept?" "I didn't—" Before he could finish, 2 Valoran guards gently lifted him and placed a ceremonial cloak over his shoulders. A glowing silver mark appeared on his palm, binding him through Valoran royal law. The Queen placed her hand over his. "By the law of the 10 Suns," she said, "our fates are joined." The crowd erupted in light and sound. The ceremony's energy beams danced around them, forming an arc of pure light over their heads. It was official. The galaxy had just witnessed a royal marriage between a human diplomat and an alien empress. Ethan stood frozen, smiling awkwardly for the cameras that floated around them like drones. He couldn't believe this was real. His translator must have malfunctioned in the worst possible way. "I just married an alien queen," he thought. "Mom's never going to believe this." That night, back in the Valoran capital ship, Ethan sat in a massive guest room filled with glowing walls, floating lights, and servants who bowed every time he moved. He tried to send a message back to the human delegation, but every channel was jammed with congratulations and official messages. Apparently, the Union was already trending across galactic news networks. Humanity's first royal marriage had ended centuries of tension between Earth and the Valoran Empire. The Queen's advisors saw it as a divine sign. The Queen herself arrived at his chamber, her presence commanding silence. She dismissed the attendants with a single gesture. "You are restless," she said calmly. Ethan stood awkwardly. Your Majesty, Queen Sarathia, about that whole marriage thing. She looked at him with curiosity. You did not intend the vow? He rubbed the back of his neck. Honestly, no. My translator glitched. I was just trying to make a toast. For a moment, the Queen was silent. Then, to his surprise, she laughed. A soft musical sound that made the air shimmer. The great Queen of 10 Suns actually laughed. So you did not seek power or throne, she said. You merely wished to share peace. Ethan nodded quickly. Exactly. So if we could maybe undo this ceremony. But she raised a hand. Valoran law does not break so easily. The bond was witnessed by the stars and sealed in light. It cannot be undone by words, Ethan sighed. So I'm really married to you? By our law, yes, she said. But I am not without mercy. If you wish, I will arrange your freedom in time. Until then, you will remain under royal protection. Ethan hesitated. Royal protection? From what? From those who would use you, she said simply. Many will see our union as a weapon or a weakness. Her gaze softened slightly. You are not what I expected, human. You are honest. Perhaps that is why the stars chose you. Ethan wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or terrified. I'm honored, I think. In the days that followed, the story spread across the galaxy like wildfire. News reports called it the Alliance of Heart and Star. Some planets celebrated, others protested. Humans debated whether Ethan had just made humanity powerful, or doomed them. Meanwhile, Ethan tried to adapt to life in the Valoran royal court. He attended meetings, greeted alien nobles, and tried to learn the customs. Every meal was a new experience. Every conversation a challenge. The Queen watched him closely. Sometimes she smiled faintly at his confusion. Sometimes she corrected him with gentle patience. Despite the strangeness, Ethan began to see something behind her regal mask, a loneliness that came with command. One evening, as they watched the stars from the royal balcony, Ethan finally spoke. Do you regret accepting? The Queen looked at him for a long moment. I have ruled for centuries, she said. Fought wars, signed treaties, yet none have ever spoken to me without fear until you. I do not regret it, human. Ethan smiled slightly. You can call me Ethan. She turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. Then you may call me Sarathia. That night, Ethan realized something unexpected. Maybe fate or a broken translator had brought them together for a reason. Maybe this accident wasn't just a mistake. As the Valoran fleet sailed across the stars, the universe whispered about the strange human who became the Queen's consort. Some called him a fool, others called him a hero. But for Ethan Cross, one thing was certain. His life would never, ever be the same again. Life in the Valoran Royal Palace was unlike anything Captain Ethan Cross had ever known. The palace floated above the capital city, surrounded by clouds of soft light and energy currents that shimmered like rainbows. Giant crystal spires connected different sections of the palace, and every hall was filled with alien nobles, royal guards, and servants who bowed whenever Ethan passed by. At first, he didn't know how to handle it. Back on Earth, he was just a diplomat, a man who worked behind desks and attended long meetings. But now the galaxy called him the human consort of the Queen of 10 Suns. He couldn't even walk through the palace garden without 50 Valoran eyes following him. Every day started the same way. Ethan would wake up in his enormous chamber greeted by Talar, a small, floating assistant orb that helped him dress, eat, and prepare for royal ceremonies. Good morning, royal consort, Talar would chirp in its soft metallic voice. Today's schedule includes royal breakfast, council session, and etiquette lessons. Ethan groaned each time. Do I have to call her your radiant majesty of 10 suns and eternal light every time I speak? Yes, the orb replied without emotion. Failing to do so is considered disrespectful, Ethan sighed. Great, another day in paradise. The Queen, Sarathia Valora IX, ruled her empire with calm authority. She sat on a throne of glowing crystal, her every word recorded by dozens of translators and diplomats. She was wise, logical, and firm. Most of the time, she didn't even glance at Ethan during council meetings. To her, he was still a curious accident, a mistake that had turned into a political miracle. But to the Valoran nobles, he was a mystery. Some whispered that the human might be using magic or trickery to influence the Queen. Others thought he was harmless, a fragile creature of flesh pretending to be royal. Ethan ignored the whispers. He focused on learning. He studied Valoran customs, history, and science. He asked questions even when people laughed at him. He made mistakes, but he always apologized and tried again, and somehow that began to change things. One day during a royal dinner, a mechanical servant malfunctioned. A hovering tray overloaded and exploded in a flash of sparks, sending shards of glass flying toward the queen. The guards froze for half a second, too slow. Ethan didn't think. He jumped across the table, shielding Sarathia with his body. The shards hit his shoulder, leaving shallow burns. The hall went silent. Every noble stared in shock. The queen herself looked stunned. When Ethan finally stood, rubbing his shoulder, he smiled awkwardly. "Guess I still need to learn how your robots work." Sarathia stared at him, her glowing eyes softer than before. "You risked your life." "For me," Ethan shrugged. "That's what humans do for people they care about," the nobles whispered. The guards saluted, and from that day on the queen began to see him differently, not as a mistake, but as someone brave. A few days later, the queen called for Ethan in her private garden, a quiet place filled with glowing flowers and floating water streams. When he arrived, she stood near the edge of a pond looking at her reflection. "You do not act like other humans I have met," she said. Ethan smiled. "Most humans don't accidentally marry alien queens." She turned, her silver blue eyes watching him carefully. "You do not fear me. Even after all you have seen, should I?" he asked. "Most beings fear power," she said. "You challenge it." Ethan thought for a moment. "Maybe it's because I see the person behind the power." For the first time, Sarathia smiled. Not a royal smile for the cameras, but a quiet, genuine one. From that moment, a strange friendship began between them. Days turned into weeks. Ethan started working on small projects inside the palace. He noticed that the Valoran energy system was wasting a lot of power through outdated shielding. Using human engineering ideas, he designed a quantum energy flow regulator, a simple modification that made the palace shield stronger and more efficient. The royal engineers laughed at him at first. "A human cannot improve Valoran technology," one said. But when Ethan's model protected the entire city from a sudden meteor shower, everyone changed their minds. The queen herself congratulated him in front of the council. "Your human mind works differently," she said. "You see solutions where others see only rules." Ethan grinned. "That's how we survived on Earth." From that day, the palace engineers began to ask for his advice. Even the nobles started to respect him. Some still looked at him as an outsider, but they could not deny his cleverness. However, not everyone was pleased. Lord Vecran, one of the queen's advisors, secretly hated Ethan's presence. He saw the human as a threat, a foreigner who was slowly gaining the queen's trust. He began spreading rumors through the court. "The human seeks the throne," he whispered to others. "He will replace our traditions with his own." The rumors reached Sarathia's ears, but she ignored them. Still, she began to watch Ethan more closely, not with suspicion, but curiosity. One evening, she invited him to the Hall of Echoes, a quiet chamber where only trusted people could speak freely. "You have done much for my world," she said. "But tell me, Ethan, what does your heart desire?" Ethan paused. "Honestly, I just want to make things better. For you, for your people, for mine. I didn't plan any of this." She studied him silently. "You speak of peace, but the galaxy does not understand peace. It understands strength." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then maybe it's time to show them that strength and kindness can live together." The queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, "Perhaps your mistake was destiny after all." Over the next months, the queen began to include Ethan in her decision-making. Together, they planned trade routes between Earth and Valora, shared technology, and created a joint research program for medical advancements. For the first time in centuries, two great civilizations worked side by side. And while they worked, something subtle began to grow between them, a trust that neither of them had expected. Sarathia admired his honesty and creativity. Ethan admired her wisdom and calm power. Their conversations became less formal, filled with quiet laughter and shared dreams. But beyond the palace walls, the galaxy stirred. The Karn Dominion, an aggressive empire that hated both humans and Velorans, began spreading propaganda. They called the marriage unnatural and claimed the queen had been deceived by Earth. Small attacks started near border systems. The Valoran Council urged Sarathia to annul the marriage to prevent war. But she refused. "Ethan Cross is under my protection," she declared. "Any attack on him is an attack on the crown." Her words echoed across the stars. One night, Ethan stood on the balcony of his quarters, staring at the endless sky. He wondered how his life had changed so much. A few months ago, he was just another man from Earth. Now he was living among stars, married to an alien queen, and shaping the future of two species. Sarathia joined him quietly. The twin moons of Valora glowed behind her, painting her in silver light. "You look troubled," she said. "Just thinking," he replied. "About how crazy all this is. About what comes next," she nodded. "The galaxy will not stay silent. But perhaps, together we can face whatever comes." Ethan turned to her, smiling. "Together sounds good." They stood side by side, looking out into the vastness of space. Neither of them spoke again, but both felt it. The strange, quiet bond between two beings from different worlds. It was more than duty now. More than accident. It was the beginning of something powerful. Far away in the dark of deep space, a Karn warlord watched the news of the Queen and her human consort. His eyes burned with hatred. "Let them play their game," he hissed. "Soon the stars will remember who truly rules." And thus the peace that began by accident was about to face its first great test. The galaxy had been peaceful for many months after the strange but powerful union between Queen Sarathia of the Valoran Empire and Captain Ethan Cross of Earth. Trade between their worlds had begun to grow. New science exchanges had started, and for the first time, hope of real unity filled the stars. But peace is a fragile thing. It never lasts forever. Far away in the dark corners of space, the Karn Dominion was preparing for war. The Karn were a proud, aggressive species with armored skin and deep, growling voices. They ruled through fear, not through wisdom. Their leaders saw the marriage between the Queen and the human as a threat to their power. To them, this union symbolized something dangerous: hope. Hope that smaller worlds might one day stand united. And that was something the Karn Dominion could never allow. Their supreme commander, Vornek, sat in his war chamber, watching a hologram of Sarathia and Ethan standing side by side during a recent peace broadcast. His glowing red eyes narrowed. "The Queen has grown weak," he said, "and the human gives her false courage. Let us remind the galaxy who truly commands fear." Within hours, the Dominion fleets were on the move. On Valora Prime, Ethan woke to the sound of alarms echoing across the palace. The room lights turned crimson and the floor trembled slightly. He jumped from his bed as his assistant orb, Talar, floated toward him, flashing bright yellow. "Alert! Outer colonies under attack! Karn fleets detected." Ethan's heart raced. He ran through the corridor to the command chamber where the Queen stood already, surrounded by generals and holographic screens filled with red symbols, enemy signals closing in. "How bad is it?" Ethan asked. "3 border systems have fallen," said General Iraq, his scaled armor reflecting the light. "The Karn are targeting our mining worlds. They strike fast, then vanish." The Queen's voice was calm but sharp. "Send aid to the colonies." "Protect the civilians," Iraq hesitated. "Your Majesty, if this continues, they will soon threaten Valora itself." Ethan looked at the screens. He knew war when he saw it. "They're testing your defenses," he said. "This isn't a random attack. They're looking for weakness." Sarathia turned to him. "What do you suggest, human?" Ethan took a deep breath. "We can't just defend. We have to make them think twice about attacking again. Let me help you organize a response team." The generals murmured in disapproval, but the Queen raised her hand for silence. "Proceed, Captain Cross." Within days, Ethan was working with both human and Valoran tacticians. His human perspective brought something new to the table: unpredictability. He used old Earth strategies, feints, diversions, and guerrilla-style tactics that confused the disciplined Karn forces. Soon, reports began to change. Karn attacks met fierce resistance. Several raids failed completely. The Queen watched Ethan with quiet admiration as he stood beside her during strategy briefings, explaining how humans thought differently. "You see patterns others miss," she said once. Ethan smiled. "On Earth, we learn to survive by adapting. We don't have claws or armor, so we use our minds." But he also knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion would not stop until they made an example of Valora, or of him. One evening, as the palace rested after a long day of planning, Ethan stood on the balcony watching the stars. The queen joined him quietly, her silver robe glowing in the night wind. "You are not afraid," she said softly. "Even when war is close," Ethan smiled faintly. "I am afraid. I just don't show it." She looked at him curiously. "Why risk yourself for a people not your own?" Ethan turned to face her. "Because peace isn't just about one world. It's about everyone, and because I believe in you." For a moment her eyes softened. "You are a strange being, Ethan Cross. You risk much for hope." He chuckled lightly. "Humans are built that way." Before either could speak again, a messenger ran to the balcony. "Your Majesty, we've received word. Our border defense station at Valeris Outpost has fallen. The commander has been captured." Sarathia's calm expression hardened. "Prepare the fleet. We end this now." The Valoran flagship Celestial Spear was the pride of the Empire, a massive cruiser armed with light cannons and shield fields. Ethan stood beside Sarathia on the command deck as stars streaked by. He looked at the glowing map projection. "If we hit their main carrier group here," he said, pointing to a nebula, "we can cut off their retreat." General Arak frowned. "It is dangerous. The nebula will interfere with our sensors," Ethan grinned. "That's why it'll work. They won't expect us to fight blind." Sarathia gave a small nod. "Proceed." The Battle of the Crimson Nebula began like thunder. The Valoran fleet entered the thick red mist where visibility was nearly zero. Karn ships appeared from the shadows, firing plasma bursts that lit up the clouds like lightning. Ethan coordinated smaller strike wings, guiding them with quick orders and unconventional moves. The Queen's command voice echoed through every ship, calm and powerful. When the Karn tried to trap them in the nebula, Ethan's plan unfolded. He used the nebula's energy fields to reflect their own sensors, making ghost signals appear all around. The Karn fired blindly at illusions while the real Valoran ship struck from behind. Within hours, the once proud Karn fleet was retreating. The captured Valoran commander was rescued. The Celestial Spear flew out of the nebula victorious. When they returned to Valora Prime, the people cheered. The Queen addressed the galaxy in a grand broadcast. Ethan stood quietly behind her as she spoke. "Let this victory remind all that unity is our greatest weapon," she said. "A human once said, 'Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to stand despite it.' We will stand together." Her words spread through countless worlds. For the first time, humans and Velerans were seen as equals, but peace once again came with a price. After the battle, Ethan began receiving secret messages, threats from unknown sources. Some Valoran nobles feared his growing influence. Others from the Karn Dominion offered him power in exchange for betrayal. He ignored them all. Then one night the palace alarm sounded again. An explosion rocked the lower halls. Ethan ran through the smoke-filled corridor to find guards fighting intruders wearing black armor with no insignia. He grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and joined the defense. Despite his lack of combat training, he managed to hold off several attackers until reinforcements arrived. When the smoke cleared, they found strange energy symbols left behind, Karn markings mixed with others. The Queen arrived moments later. "You are hurt," she said, noticing a burn on his arm. "I'll live," Ethan replied. But someone wanted to make a point. "They're not done." Her voice grew quiet. "The Dominion will not stop until one of us falls." Ethan looked at her seriously. "Then we don't let them win." In the following weeks, the attacks continued. Small sabotage missions, spies in the palace, intercepted messages. It became clear that someone was feeding information from inside. Ethan and Sarathia worked together, tracing communications through secret channels. One night they discovered the truth. It was Lord Vekran, the same advisor who had always distrusted Ethan. He had been working with the Karn, feeding them information in exchange for promises of power. When the Queen confronted him, he sneered. "You have allowed this human to poison our empire. He has no place among us." Sarathia's eyes glowed cold blue. "You betrayed your people. The punishment is exile." Vekran spat bitter words as the guards took him away. "You will regret trusting the human." But deep down, the Queen knew Ethan had saved her realm again. Not just with courage, but with loyalty. That night, as the two stood alone in the grand hall, she said softly, "You have changed this empire more than you know." Ethan looked up at the shining ceiling. "Maybe it's changing me too." Sarathia smiled faintly. "The galaxy watches us now. Together, we are a symbol, But symbols can be dangerous, Ethan nodded. If being a symbol means standing for peace, then I'll take that risk. The Queen extended her hand. Then we faced the storms ahead as one. He took it firmly, feeling the warmth of her glowing skin. Outside, the stars burned brighter. But in the dark beyond, shadows were gathering again, because while the Velerans and humans celebrated their victory, the Karn Dominion was already preparing their revenge. And this time, they wouldn't stop at war. They wanted the Queen and her human consort destroyed. The galaxy had seen the bravery of Captain Ethan Cross, the human who had risked everything to defend Queen Sarathia and the Valoran Empire. The news of his victories spread far and wide, earning him admiration from humans and Velerans alike. But admiration in a palace often comes with hidden dangers. The Valoran Council, composed of the most senior nobles and advisors, had begun to murmur. While many praised Ethan, some saw his influence as a threat to Valoran tradition. His unconventional ideas, human courage, and closeness to the Queen challenged the long-established hierarchy. Lord Vecran's exile had only stirred tension. Loyalists to the old ways whispered in shadowed corridors that the human consort was gaining too much power. One evening, the council gathered in the grand chamber of Oracles. The air was heavy with tension. Ethan, unaware of the full extent of the discussions, was summoned as part of ceremonial protocol. "Captain Cross," said Archon Rel, the head of the council, "your actions have been remarkable, but we face a delicate balance. Your presence, though courageous, stirs unrest." Ethan frowned. "Unrest? I've saved your people. Protected your queen. What more could you want?" Rel's eyes were cold. "The galaxy watches. Other empires see our empire bending to the will of a human. Fear spreads, and fear can lead to war." Before Ethan could reply, the Queen entered. Her voice was calm, clear, and commanding. "Archon Rel, the human, has done nothing but serve Valora faithfully. He is under my protection." Rel bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, we speak not against your judgment, but for the safety of the Empire." Ethan realized this was not about him personally. It was about politics. The old Valoran ways feared change, and a human among them represented change in its purest form. That night, Ethan returned to his quarters, troubled. He had thought victory in the Crimson Nebula had secured the Empire's future, but now he understood that fear, not gratitude, drove many. Taylor, the floating assistant orb, hovered near him. "Royal Consort, the Council's position grows stronger. There is talk of exile." Ethan froze. "Exile? Are you serious?" "Yes, not by the Queen's command, but by Council decree for the protection of the Empire." Ethan's heart sank. To be exiled meant leaving the palace, leaving the Queen, leaving everything he had fought for. He spent the night pacing, thinking of all the people depending on him, the humans, the Velerans, and even the Queen herself. Exile would remove him from the fight, but he also knew that trying to resist openly could spark internal conflict. The next morning, the Queen summoned him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held a quiet sorrow. "Ethan," she said softly, "the Council has spoken. To keep you safe and to protect the Empire, I must order your exile." Ethan blinked. You're sending me away?" She nodded. "It is not my choice, but I cannot let them harm you. This is the only way to protect you and the people." He swallowed hard. "So, I leave? Just like that?" Her voice softened. "Not forever. You will leave to a distant world where you can prepare, learn, and grow stronger. When the time is right, you will return." Ethan wanted to protest, but he could see the wisdom in her eyes. She was sacrificing her personal desire to protect him. For a moment he felt a mix of anger, sadness, and admiration. Finally he nodded. "If this is the way to protect everyone, I will go." The preparations were swift. Ethan boarded the Stellar Voyager, a human Veloran hybrid ship designed for exploration and defense. The Queen stood on the palace balcony watching him leave. "You will be remembered," she said softly, her glowing eyes reflecting the twin moons of Valora. "The galaxy will know your courage." Ethan waved. "And I will return," he promised. Stronger, faster, better, the ship lifted off, gliding smoothly into the stars. He looked back one last time at the floating palace, the glowing towers, and the city that had become his second home. His heart ached, but he knew the Queen was right. He had to survive to fight another day. The first weeks of exile were lonely. Ethan settled on Aurelia 5, a small habitable planet far from Valora Prime. The world was wild, dense forests, sparkling rivers, and towering mountains. Humans had never settled here, so he had no community, only the land and the occasional alien animal to keep him company. But solitude did not mean inactivity. Ethan trained. He honed his skills in engineering, combat, and diplomacy. He built a small research base combining human ingenuity with Valoran technology he had smuggled aboard. His mind never stopped thinking of the Queen, the Empire, and the growing threat of the Karn Dominion. Every day he tested new defensive strategies, studied alien tactics, and prepared for the inevitable return. Months passed. During this time, the Karn Dominion grew bolder. Attacks increased along the borders, and spies infiltrated more colonies. The Queen and her loyal generals managed the crisis, but they knew that victory could not last forever. Ethan received encrypted messages from loyal Valorans, updates about the Empire and intelligence on Karn movements. He was far yet connected. Every decision he made from Aurelia 5 had the potential to save lives. One evening, while calibrating a defensive drone, he received a distress transmission. It was from the Queen herself. "Ethan, we need you," her voice said, filled with urgency. "Karn forces have captured one of our key research stations. They are advancing on the palace." Ethan's heart pounded. He had trained for this, but nothing could prepare him for seeing her in danger. He made a decision. He would return, no matter the risks. Ethan prepared the Stellar Voyager for the journey back. The ship, enhanced with both human ingenuity and Valoran technology, was capable of traveling faster than most fleets. He plotted a course through the outer nebula, where enemy patrols were light but dangers were unpredictable. Before leaving, he stood on the observation deck, looking at Aurelia 5 one last time. The forests and mountains felt peaceful, yet he knew his mission was far from over. "This is just the beginning," he said to himself. "I will return, and I will protect her." Meanwhile, back on Valora Prime, Sarathia prepared for the worst. The Queen's confidence never wavered publicly, but privately she worried. Ethan's absence left a void, not just in leadership but in her life. "Captain Cross," she whispered to her aide. "He is more than a consort. He is the heart of our alliance." The aide nodded silently. "He will return, Your Majesty." "He always does." Sarathia's eyes glowed softly, her mind already planning how to use Ethan's return to strengthen the Empire. Even in exile, he remained a symbol of hope, of unity, courage, and determination. Across the stars, the Karn Dominion watched the departure of the human consort with suspicion. "The human is gone," Vornek said, his voice low and threatening. "But he is dangerous. Exile will not weaken him," and Vornek was right. Exile did not weaken Ethan. It strengthened him. Every day on Aurelia 5, every obstacle he faced, every challenge he overcame, made him ready for the next chapter. Because soon, he would return. Not as a diplomat, not as a consort, but as a leader. A human who had learned the ways of an alien empire and combined them with human ingenuity. A human who would face impossible odds and survive. As the twin suns set on Aurelia 5, Ethan looked up at the stars, imagining the distant palace, the city of Valora, and the Queen he loved. His life had changed forever, and the galaxy would never forget the human who dared to stand beside an alien queen. The exile was not an end. It was preparation, and in his heart Ethan knew the time to return and to protect everything he loved was coming soon. The stars stretched endlessly before Captain Ethan Cross as he piloted the Stellar Voyager back toward Valora Prime. Months of training, planning, and preparation had led to this moment. Every system on the ship had been optimized for speed, defense, and stealth. Every calculation was precise. But even with all the technology and training, Ethan felt the familiar flutter of fear in his chest. This journey was not just about strategy. It was about saving Queen Sarathia, his people, and the fragile hope of peace across the galaxy. Back on Valora Prime, the Queen's silver eyes scanned the horizon from the palace balcony. The Empire had been on high alert since the last Karn attacks, but the absence of the human consort left a deep void. "Something is coming," she whispered, sensing a shift in the cosmic winds. Her aide, a young Valoran named Lyra, tilted her head. "Do you sense him, Your Majesty?" Sarathia's eyes softened. Yes, the one who stands beside me, who fights not for glory but for life itself. He is returning. Meanwhile, Ethan approached the Valoran system, careful to avoid detection. The Karn Dominion had expanded its patrols, searching for the human who had humiliated them in the Crimson Nebula months earlier. Ethan activated the stealth drive, slipping past their sensors like a shadow. As he entered orbit, he could see Valora Prime glowing beneath him, peaceful yet tense. Smoke rose from border colonies recently attacked. Civilians and soldiers alike had suffered in his absence. His heart hardened. He could not fail. Not now. The first step was reconnaissance. Ethan deployed drones across key Karn fleet positions and captured detailed data. He discovered the Dominion had established a forward base on a nearby asteroid cluster, using it as a staging ground to strike at Valora Prime directly. "This is bigger than I thought," he muttered. They planned to hit the heart of the Empire. He devised a daring plan. Instead of a direct assault, he would divide and confuse the Karn forces. Using Valoran stealth technology combined with human strategy, he created fake fleet signatures, making the Dominion believe the Valorans were scattered and weak. It was risky, but Ethan had never been one to shy away from a challenge. On Valora Prime, Sarathia gathered her loyal generals. "The human returns," she said calmly, "and with him, we will strike at the Dominion's heart. Trust him as I do." The generals exchanged uncertain glances. Few humans had ever commanded Valoran respect, but the Queen's unwavering faith in Ethan left no room for doubt. The first phase of the plan began at dawn. Ethan led a small strike team, cloaked in the asteroid shadows, directly toward the Karn forward base. His team consisted of Valoran elite pilots, humans trained in space combat, and a few independent mercenaries who owed him their loyalty. The assault was precise. Drones disabled external shields while Ethan's ships infiltrated the base. The Dominion was caught off guard, overwhelmed by attacks from unexpected directions. Within hours, the base was secured, and key intelligence about the Dominion fleet was captured. Ethan transmitted the data back to Valora Prime. The Queen received it immediately, her eyes glinting with determination. "Prepare the fleet. We move tonight." Night fell on Valora Prime, and the combined human-Valoran fleet assembled. Ships of every size and shape floated in formation, their energy shields glowing softly under the twin moons. Ethan took command, his voice calm yet commanding through the communication channels. "We strike together. Focus on their carriers. Protect the civilians. Trust each other. The Dominion will learn the strength of unity." The Valoran captains exchanged glances. They had trained for centuries, yet here was a human, guiding them with tactics that defied convention, and it worked. The Battle of Twin Suns began with a dazzling display of light and fire. Karn ships fired plasma bolts, dodging and weaving through debris fields. But the fleet coordinated perfectly under Ethan's guidance. He used human-inspired flanking maneuvers combined with Valoran energy shields to trap the enemy in crossfire. The battle raged for hours. Explosions lit up space. Ships collided. Yet Ethan remained focused, moving from station to station, adjusting strategies and boosting morale. Finally, the Dominion flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, was isolated. Using a combination of Valoran stealth technology and human piloting tricks, Ethan's team disabled its engines and captured the warlord Vornek. Victory was theirs. The Karn forces retreated, scattered and broken. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The human consort had returned and saved the Empire. Back on Valora Prime, the citizens cheered. People lined the streets, waving flags and holographic banners. For the first time, humans and Valorans celebrated together, and at the palace balcony, Sarathia waited. Ethan landed the stellar Voyager in the palace courtyard. He stepped down, dusting off his uniform, and looked around. Soldiers and civilians alike parted for him, bows and salutes showing respect. Then he saw her, Queen Sarathia. She stood tall, her silver blue eyes glowing softly, hair shimmering like starlight. "Ethan," she said simply. He ran to her. Without hesitation, he took her hands in his. "I promised I would return," he said. "And I did." Sarathia smiled, her eyes reflecting relief, admiration, and something deeper. Trust and perhaps the beginning of love. "You have returned," she whispered. "The Empire is safe. Because of you." Ethan shook his head. We did it together. Humans, Velerans, everyone. This victory isn't mine alone. The Queen and her consort stood before the people, a symbol of unity and courage. Together, they addressed the crowd. Let this victory remind all who doubt, Sarathia's voice echoed across the city, that courage and loyalty can overcome fear and division. Humanity and Valorans will stand together, stronger than ever. Ethan added, and the galaxy will see that even the smallest acts of courage can change worlds. We fight not for power, but for hope, for life, and for each other. The crowd erupted into cheers. For the first time, humans and Velerans celebrated as equals, their laughter mingling in the night sky. But even in victory, Ethan and Sarathia knew their work had only begun. The Dominion was still a threat, and other empires watched the rise of the human-Valoran alliance with suspicion. Yet, the return of the human consort had shown the galaxy one undeniable truth. Humans could rise to meet impossible challenges, and their courage could inspire entire civilizations. In the weeks that followed, Ethan helped the Queen strengthen defenses, train fleets, and plan new diplomatic alliances. He became more than a consort. He became a leader, trusted by Valorans and humans alike. But through it all, he never lost sight of why he fought. He fought for the people, for peace, and for the woman who had trusted him enough to stand beside him in the stars. One quiet evening, as they walked together through the palace gardens, Ethan looked at the glowing flowers and floating streams. Sarathia's hand rested lightly on his arm. You have changed more than the Empire, she said softly. You have changed me. Ethan smiled. And you've changed me too. I never imagined I'd stand beside a queen, let alone fight for an entire galaxy. She laughed softly, the sound like a gentle melody across the night sky. You have done more than any human could imagine. You have become a symbol of hope. Ethan squeezed her hand. Then let's make sure that hope never fades, and together, they looked up at the stars, ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them next. For Captain Ethan Cross, what began as a mistake had become a lifetime of adventure, courage, and unity. And in the heart of the Valoran Empire, humans and aliens alike knew one truth. Even a single human can change the course of the stars.